Hello, hello, YouTube. I am live. Wow. Live without a net. I feel like that was an album of some kind. Does anybody remember that one? How are you guys doing? It is Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. And we are still in the middle of, what do you call it now? You call it the COVID crisis, the coronavirus crisis, the quarantine, the great illness. I don't know what you call this thing we're in, but we're in it. So if you're watching this in the future at some point, obviously you can't watch in the past, right? Then you will know that this was a crazy time for all of us. But I thought I would jump on today and talk about reselling because Kaaren and I have been talking about that a little bit lately and just trying to figure out what we're going to do after this is all over. So if you guys are resellers and you're watching this, no matter what channel you're selling on, eBay, Amazon, whatever it is you're watching on, I'd like to hear from you. So I'd like to hear what you're going to do after this is over, because I'm trying to figure that out, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are trying to figure that out. So I thought I would jump on and talk about it. I don't have a set agenda. Imagine that. I don't have a set script. I just want to talk to you guys about what this is going to look like when this ends. And probably most of us right now are thinking, is it ever going to end? When will it end? What will ending even look like? And yeah, so that's a realistic problem for sure. I'm going to share, if anybody wants to jump on, I'm going to share this in the chat, the StreamYard link. You can jump in. So if you want, just jump on and I'll add you as a participant. I'll share that again here in the future. Thrifty Space Queen says, it seems endless. You're right. Somebody was talking about that yesterday, maybe it was a couple days ago, and they said, how do we know, like, what does ending look like? What is this virus situation and so on? What does this even look like? What will be different? And that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to eat an ice cream bar while I'm talking to you guys. I don't know what ending looks like. Does that mean there's no more new infections? That doesn't seem like that'll ever be the case, unless it just completely dies out. Does it mean there'll be no more deaths? Also unlikely. Does it mean that we just get it to a limit where we can treat people? We have enough hospitals and ICU units and beds and so on, and medical professionals, staff to handle the cases? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what ending it looks like, but I know this. I know at some point the quarantine that a lot of us are under right now, or the stay-at-home orders, or whatever you want to call them, it has to end. It has to end. It has to end for a lot of people, because the economy is going to crater if we don't. And that's going to cause just as many, if not more, issues than the, excuse me, sorry a second, got to clear my throat. The economy cratering is going to cause a lot more issues than the coronavirus ever will. If we're not careful, it'll cause more pain and suffering than the virus. If the economy gets so poor and drops into like a depression, that people are going to be out of work, be out of their homes for weeks or months or years. I mean, it can be a long time. So we got to prevent that from happening somehow. Susanna says, the world will be a far different place after this, and it will never be the same. Yeah, well, yeah, you're probably right. I don't know though. Like, I don't know how it's going to be different. But you're right. I think it is going to be different for sure. It's already different, but I don't know exactly how. Rich says doing liquidation for years, the margins are too tight. We'll transition more to thrifting and garage sales when they open up. Yeah, so that makes sense, and that's a good question. Like, when will garage sales open up, or thrift stores? Thrift stores, I think, will open quicker than garage sales. Garage sales, people might be a little iffy about it for a while. I mean, there'll still be some people who do it, but on a big scale, I don't know if that'll come anytime soon, because I think people are just going to be worried about people showing up that may be infected or what have you. Ryan says, will end when you hear the words vaccine, cure, or treatment. Yeah. I mean, you might be right, Ryan. I don't know. I mean, a vaccine is still a ways away. Treatment, there's treatments they're trying right now and trying to figure out. But, there probably won't be a cure. Viruses are really almost impossible to cure, but a treatment, maybe. I don't know. Like, I don't know if we can wait that long. Maybe we can if it speeds along, but that could be months. I think we're still sitting here in this same position 6 months from now. The consequences are going to be dire. I mean, dire. But if we kind of break out of this shell in the next month or two, I think we still have time to sort of, recoup some of the losses. Yeah, it's going to suck, but people will be able to go back to work. The government's going to help a little bit for sure, and who knows how well that'll help. But I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know if we can wait that long, because you're talking about probably next year or sometime in 2021. That seems like a long time to wait. Susanna says we have higher unemployment than in the Great Depression, and we stand a chance to go into socialism. Yeah, I mean, I think, Susanna, we already have elements of socialistic societies in the United States already. I mean, we have some socialized medicine, Medicare, Medicaid. We have a government retirement program with Social Security, quote unquote. We have the welfare benefits for people who are, down on their luck or economically in a bad situation right now. I mean, we have things already. We have healthcare in the sense that, if you walk into an emergency room, they're going to save your life. They may not give you the long extended care for months or years afterwards, but they're going to save your life. They're not going to turn you away and say, well, you don't have money. We're going to let you die. We have elements of socialism already. I mean, there's no pure socialistic society. There's no pure democracy. There's no pure republic. They all draw some things in from other types of economic ideas, but you just have to look at the sum total. Someone called the stimulus check socialism. Yeah, I mean, maybe, sure. I don't know. Socialistic societies tend to believe, and even communism too, but they tend to believe that government should own the means of production. Government should be in control of all the economic output. I don't think you could argue we're that, not by any stretch of imagination. I don't know that there is a country that's that, really, to that degree. Maybe North Korea, but China is certainly not. China has a lot of capitalistic influences and so on. Also, socialism tends to lead to quote unquote, supposed to lead to communism, this withering away, and eventually the withering away of the state. But that's a whole other argument for another day. But it also means that you have to eventually eliminate private property. And I don't think we're anywhere near that. Hopefully we never get there. That doesn't seem like a very good idea to me. It doesn't seem like it would work. John Cleater, what's up, dude? Hey, Cleater, you should really think about getting a picture on your profile. Just saying. Because, that green guy or white guy with a green background. Susanna says, the New York mayor said they're going to spread the wealth. Said that this morning. Wow, this is turning into like an economic argument or some sort of economic discussion on how to run a society. D. Conley says, hey, late to the party. What's up? Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, Susanna. To spread the wealth is kind of a, when politicians say they're going to spread the wealth, it really puts in people's minds this idea of, I think it's based on a premise. Man, I should do a whole topic on this. It's based on the premise that there's a segment of the population that thinks that the haves having whatever they have, however you want to define the haves versus the have-nots, or as some people say in the United States, maybe it's better to define it as the haves and have-mores, because there are some have-nots, but we clearly have a lot of advantages over a lot of societies, not all, but a lot. You're tend to making a class argument and a jealousy argument that, well, these people have more than you, and therefore that's not fair on some basic primal level. Maybe they had this advantage or you had this disadvantage, whatever the reason is. So we're going to take from them and give it to you to level the playing field, so to speak. It's a great way to get votes without actually doing anything, because you can just say that that's what we need to do. And people will be like, yeah, that seems right. Those people over there, which is kind of funny to think about. Like, you think about like if you walked over to a rich person's house, let's say, and you broke in, you stole $1,000 from them, you would be arrested. But if the government taxes that person more and sends you $1,000 worth of benefits, let's say in rent assistance, let's say, or for food or for energy credits, it's okay. It's just the means in which we did. It's kind of funny to me. Cleater will disagree. Maybe. Sorry, John. Doing any OA for resale? No, not right now. But that's a good idea. I think online arbitrage, man, there's going to be a lot of stuff sitting on these websites, right? Let's see. What else is going on? Thrifty Space Queen says, I'm hoping to get back to the thrift store as soon as possible. I've pulled old inventory to redonate and have listed my entire death pile. Well, that's a good thing. I mean, that's probably going to get you some sales, right? The thrift stores, maybe they'll, that's a good question when they'll reopen. I mean, thrift stores tend to get kind of tight and congested, so I would think they may wait a while before they reopen. Let's see. Susanna said the haves are not dying as much as the poor, and many are leaving New York into other hideaways. Yeah, I mean, that may be true. I don't know. Yeah, so what other strategies are you guys going to use specifically after this quarantine ends? I mean, I'll tell you kind of what we're thinking about. I will be back out for books. I went in today and I took a online Chrome calculator and just looked up a book that I recently sold. And I just kind of wanted to see, because it's sort of an average book for me. And so I wanted to see and make sure like what the fulfilled by merchant numbers look like and then fulfilled by Amazon numbers look like. And basically my cost of goods for books, I can sell a $12 book FBA and still make enough to at least monetize my cost to process the book, kind of an hourly wage. and I could sell it for $9 fulfilled by merchant. So that's kind of my floor for books I figured out, or just wanted to make sure that was still valid. And then, but I really want to hit a little bit higher number for that. And so it'll probably push up about $3 for that on each one. So I really want to look for fulfilled by merchant books that are $12 and up, maybe a little lower, but maybe even $11.50. But and fulfilled by Amazon, excuse me, $15 and up, just to not only make enough to pay myself a wage, but that kind of gives me a tip on where to go when I get out, when this ends, because I find that libraries and book sales have really good books. Book sales are more expensive though. So I don't know that I'll be going to those or not. Somebody was asking me about those the other day. I think that libraries are always still going to be good. Maybe estate sales. I haven't been out to estate sales in a while. Kind of curious if any of you guys have been, because I feel like estate sales may not come back as quickly from this quarantine and so on. I mean, would you really want to have people in your house if you thought they had a contagious, potentially deadly disease? Probably not. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like the fundamentals of the economy were pretty good before all this happened, and I don't know that really they've changed, other than the fact that everybody's just scared right now. A lot of companies have had to shutter because they've been told they had to by the government. So when the government reopens them, how many of them will reopen? Anybody got a feel for that? I don't. Like, I saw the other day, like AMC movie theaters may file for bankruptcy. They literally have zero revenue coming in. At least if you're a restaurant, you can offer a takeout and delivery service. A theater can't have anybody in there. So there's no revenue coming in to them at all. So they're kind of out of luck. Will they reopen? It seems unlikely. They would, where would the money come from to get operations? Because there's a lag, right, between when you get new revenue coming in. So they may not make it. Like, I don't know. Will thrift stores go out of business? Anybody, what do you guys think on that? I don't know. Like, I could see some of them going out of business because I don't know. Let's take Susanna's argument for a moment, that the have-nots are having a tougher time in this crisis than the haves. That's usually the way it is in any crisis, right? Obviously, if you have less economic resources, anything that goes wrong is probably going to be tougher on you. That's always the way it is. Natural disaster, outbreak like this, whatever. I feel like a lot of the people who shop at thrift stores, there's a big chunk of the population who's probably a little less economically advantaged. And are they going to go and buy things at thrift stores after this is over? I don't know. Like, if they've been tight now on rent or mortgage and food and utilities, maybe they just make do for 6 months with what they have. That would be a guess, and it's only a guess. I could be wrong. So I don't know if they're going to go out to the thrift stores or not, which if they don't, then that impacts the thrift stores' bottom lines. Like, where do they, let's say that that's 30% of the customers who shop there. I don't know what the number is, but let's say that's it. If that number gets cut in half, now all of a sudden they've lost 15% of their customer base, which, probably means they're going to lose around 15% of their revenue. Like, that's a big hit to a company, especially after they've been closed for weeks. I don't know. I mean, will Goodwill, will Salvation Army, will the mom and pop thrifts, will they be able to make it after this? I suspect not. I suspect several of them, especially the mom and pops, who are probably already operating on pretty tight margins to start with and don't have a lot of resources and backup, will go under. Which is ironic, because there will be people who want to donate things because they will downsize in this. This happened during 2008 after the Great Recession and the housing market collapsed and so many people went underwater in their homes and lost their homes. A lot of stuff just got donated, stuck in storage buildings, sold off to auctions, whatever. And it was a boon for thrift stores to some degree because now they had a lot of inventory, probably more than they could really do with. But I don't know if that'll happen this time or not. It might, which might mean if you're someone who thrifts a lot, I'd love to hear from somebody who does thrift a lot. Will you, do you think you'll still have the same number of stores open to you? I don't know. You might not. Let's see what other people say here. Mr. Clear says, my strategy will change dramatically depending on how long we're locked down. Well, how will it change? Let's hear it. You haven't even told me that, sir, and you and I have talked offline, so I want to hear it. Thrifty Space Queen says, I think the smaller thrifts could go out of business. I agree. Like I mentioned, I think so too, Thrifty. I think it's hard to see how a mom and pop local thrift store who's shuttered for say 2 months. I mean, that's 1/6 of your revenue for the year potentially, maybe more or less depending on seasonality. But man, that hurts. I mean, granted, you're still having to pay your lease on the building, and you're not paying employees right then, but you may be the only employee or one of the only. So Thrift Dance Eat Repeat says, I doubt thrift stores will close. They will always have inventory coming in. They will have inventory coming in, but the question is, will they have anybody to buy it, and will they have been able to make it through this time and pay their leases and so on to their landlords? And will their landlords have made it if they're leasing their building, which most of them are? That's the question. City Picker, I noticed Goodwill closed, but still taking donations. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if they are here in Charlotte or not. I haven't even looked. Is Goodwill still taking donations? Like, what are they doing with them? They have somebody processing and just stack them somewhere? Like, seems like without anybody coming in to buy them, they would be very, they would get full up very quickly, but I could be wrong. Susanna says, and will they be scared to handle used stuff? I don't know. I mean, they don't seem too scared now, so I kind of doubt it. John says, I'm a mom and pop. I may have to come live with you. I don't know if you were talking to me, but cool. We'll make room. I don't know where. You can sleep right there on the kitchen floor, maybe? Perfect. Excuse me 1 second here. Let's see. Thrift Dance Repeats says, what about the people that passed away? Their stuff will be donated to the thrift. For sure. Some will be donated. Some will be thrown out. I mean, you're right. I mean, but I don't want to minimize this for anybody, but I don't think that the number of people who die here is going to be a substantially large number in terms of all the people that die in the United States in a year, let's say. I don't know that this is going to be a huge additional amount. I mean, it will be some. I mean, that's hard to say, but I'm already seeing estimates that the death toll may be lower than they thought, that it may be. I don't think anybody knows at this point. I don't know that anybody knows anything. So we're still gonna have to wait and see on that one. Oh, this is interesting. City Picker says, I'm a garbage man. Residential waste tonnage is up. People are staying home or cleaning out, not donating, throwing away. That's an interesting point, City Picker, because they probably don't even want to deal with throwing or cleaning it out. They're just throwing it away. They're not going to donate it. That's very interesting. I hadn't. They don't even want to make the trip, or they don't think it's open anyway. So yeah, that's a good question. Thrifty says, I feel like the smaller thrift stores were barely getting by before this happened. I do too, Thrifty Space Queen. I don't think I can't imagine a thrift store, a local mom and pop thrift store, is that profitable. I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, well, they get their inventory for free. I get that. But I don't know if they're moving enough of it. And not all inventory is equal. Like, I think for the inventory, if I were going to open up I'm probably going to say something stupid, and maybe somebody who owns a thrift store is in the chat is going to say, yeah, you're dumb. I think if I opened up a thrift store, my business model would be sell things out front that didn't make sense to sell online. And I would absolutely open up an online business in the back, like from day one. But I'm not sure that most mom and pop thrift stores have a big online presence. And I think they tend to hoard things. Hoarding's the wrong word. I think they tend to, a lot of them at least, tend to keep things on their shelves that don't really make sense. That are they're just trying to get anything they can out of them. But the problem is, once the item comes in the back door, you still have to pay somebody to pick it up, look at it, maybe test it, inspect it, put it on a shelf, clean that shelf, eventually ring somebody up for it. You've got expense. You've got some sunk cost into that item that aren't directly related to buying the item. They're just related to handling the item and storing the item. And plus, if you put that item on a shelf, that's one less item that might have already sold you could have put on that shelf. Like, you're always making choices. And a lot of thrift stores get more donations they can handle. I remember Kaaren and I went to a thrift store that was a friend of ours. He was a person who watches this channel, him and his wife, and they had more than they knew what to do with. And they just had more stuff than they could literally put out. So that creates a real problem. Like, you really want to find a way to monetize your duds, or at least monetize the inventory you can't get to. And if you're not selling online, you're only selling to your small little local community. That's a very small customer base. I bet some of these thrift stores, I'm going to guess, but I bet some of these thrift stores don't have more than, say, 50 to 100 people that come in a given day. So let's assume you're open 6 days a week. You might only be getting 1,200-ish people a month coming into your store. And if you're only converting 20% of them, let's say, you might be converting 30%, let's say. And I base that based on my retail experience back in the day when I was working at standalone stores. So you're only converting 30% of 1,200. So now you're converting, 360 people? If they're only spending like, I don't know, what would 360 people spend? $20 each, maybe? $7,200 in a given month in revenue. Oof. You're pushing it on the margins there, because you got a lot of expenses that are going to come out of that. Your payroll alone, it could just be you, but your payroll is going to eat up a big chunk of that. And that's probably, that might even be too optimistic. I don't know. Maybe if somebody's got a thrift store around one, you could tell me. But I feel like these thrift stores are already tight margins to start with. Goodwill or Salvation Army, especially Goodwill, they get a lot more traffic than that. They definitely get more than 100 people a day coming there. It's probably several hundred. So they are converting more. They're moving more items. Whereas a smaller thrift store, there's no way. I've just watched. I've been in there sometimes a half an hour, 45 minutes, scanning books, and like 4 people came in. Well, if you start projecting that out, that's not a lot of people coming in there, and you're not going to convert every single person who comes into a sale, and every single sale is not going to be like $100. Their average sale can't be, but I don't know, $20 maybe, 20. That might even be high, 25. I don't know. Anyway, somebody else maybe I'm way off my numbers, but I don't think I'm that far off. All right. So thrift stores may disappear, guys. So if your model is to only go after thrift stores for inventory, you may want to be prepared if that's no longer as viable as it was. I'm behind on a couple comments. Susanna, can't the ones that are privately owned borrow on the government stimulus to small business? They can. The question is, Will they get the money in time? Will they be able to pay it back down the road? No idea. There's some problems with that government borrowing program. It's a huge demand, and I know they're expecting it, but they're not prepared for it. So, all right, and this is an interesting take. Charles Benny says the locked up stores will be raided when the people are hungry enough. There will be no stock in them. You can't talk to someone on an empty stomach. You either feed it or you shoot it. People have to eat it. Charles going right for Walking Dead here, right? Like, man, it's going to get bad. I hope you're not right about that. I hope that the food supply will continue to be okay. I think it will be. Don't have any reason not to believe that. But if that happens, we got bigger problems than what we're going to sell after this all lifts. Mark says, "Hey, Mark, what's up? Are you pivoting with selling merchant books?" Yeah, not so much pivoting. Like we just, we couldn't send books in. And so we started doing some merchant fulfill, just a small number, like 20, 25 books, and have sold a few. I mean, there's definitely a market there. I think we could easily, and anybody could, you could easily find room for, 200 or 300 books in most people's homes and so on, if you've got any reasonable amount of space and not take up, more than like a shelf's worth of area. If you have a bookshelf, you could get a couple hundred books in it, and you're selling. Oh, I see Amazon Prime across the way delivering. Go people! It's my people. If you got like 200 books or so there, you can sell. I don't know. You might sell 20 of them a month. Depending on what they are, and make a few bucks. So yeah, we've been doing a little bit of that, but right now we're not able to source books at all. Although I am going somewhere today that might have free books. So not giving that one away. All right. Mark had another question about books. When you sell merchant, do you charge for shipping? It's up to you, Mark. You can. You could price the shipping into your sale price. You're going to have to ship the book, probably medium mail. Most of the time is okay. And people are okay with getting the book a little bit later than, getting it the next day or anything like that. And medium mail is not too expensive. I mean, for about $3, you can ship most books, I believe, to most anywhere. Roughly in there, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on certain things. But you just got to price that into your number. Let's see. D. Conley says the banks are not releasing money until the specifics are worked out. Yeah, I mean, I think, you hit on an interesting point here because, by the way, if anybody wanted to jump on for a moment, I'm going to post the stream link if you care to jump on and talk for a moment. If not, that's cool too. But I think that people are, the banks they're set up to give loans and so on. They're set up to distribute money. But at the same time, this is a huge demand. And the stimulus bill was pushed through so fast that I'm not sure there was, with good reason, but it was pushed through so fast that I don't know that they really set up a lot of the infrastructure on the back end. Like I know the Small Business Administration has been struggling to keep up with all the requests for the Paycheck Protection and the EIDL, which I applied for, by the way. The economic, what is that called? Economic disaster loan advance. Because my business is completely shut down. Like, I mean, I've got some inventory in there, but I can't source anything. I can't pay myself out of it really to speak of, not much to speak of. There's just not a lot of sales right now. And I certainly can't go get other inventory. So, I applied, and if I could use that to maybe find some inventory, which maybe I can, at least online, then I'll do it. But we'll see. But yeah, the stimulus bill got passed really quickly because they're, they wanted to be fast with it, understandably so. But when you pass something that quick, there's not a lot of thought to giving out, how the money is going to get sent out or how it's going to be distributed. And now they've run into this problem where they just don't have any way to, get it out to everybody as quick as they want to. So it's a mess. I mean, there's no other way to say it, but it's a mess. And it's going to continue to be a mess for a while. If you're waiting on that stimulus money and so on, you may get it very quickly, but you may not get it for quite some time as well. You need to be prepared for either. I would just say be prepared for it to take a while. And if you get it quicker, great. But I don't, we're fortunate and blessed that we can make ends meet with, the work we have elsewhere right now. But I know not everybody's in that boat. And I feel for you if you're not. This is very difficult. I was talking with someone the other day who was really struggling with all this. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff coming down the pike at him. And I can identify with that. There's been times where I've had similar situations. It all goes back to, you got to have a little faith that things are going to work out, first of all. And faith is, it's like assurance without evidence. That's what faith is. It's not, oh, I know it's going to. No, it's just believing it's going to. And you got to have that. And you also got to think about, this is an opportunity to remember, things like this will happen again in the future, and you should make plans to deal with it if it happens. I don't know what that looks like for you. I kind of know what it looks like for me, but not totally. I don't know that anybody could have prepared for this exactly. But, I saw a meme the other day that said, it was a picture of Dave Ramsey, and the caption said something like, doesn't seem so crazy advocating for 6 months living expenses put aside now, does it? No, it sure doesn't. It looks pretty smart, given this situation. And, I kind of took that to heart too and said, that's something that needs to happen. Got to get some financial stuff in better order. But we're going to come out of this and have, opportunity. I've talked about in previous videos, but I'm going to go after books after quarantine. I'm going to build the book business. My first goal is just to make books net $500 a month. That's it. And if I'm able to do that and get to a point where I can do that and still hit the same sourcing opportunities that make sense for me in my area and hit them more often or hit more of them and build even further, then I'll try to go to 1,000. That's really those are my short-term goals over the next, say, 6 months. I consider 6 months kind of short-term. And assuming we can get out and about here in the next month or so, I think that's doable. I know it's doable to get to 500. 1,000 will be a little tougher just because, what I don't know, and I kind of know, but I really don't know for sure, is how often I can go to the same sources over and over and over without spinning my wheels. And what I mean by that is out going and just scanning the same books over and over and over, and nothing new has really been added. So I'm going to try to be more proactive over this next 6 months to get other sources and to reach out to people. I am so lazy about that and so terrible. I don't know how many of you guys do it. How many of you have relationships with thrift store owners or estate sale company owners or people who buy auction units and you can have access to the things they don't want? Like, I'm terrible about that. I've 100% dropped the ball on that. There was one guy I was going to try to do some stuff with, and it just didn't work out, and I just kind of didn't get back to it. But I got to do that. Like, that's just reality. Because you can go hit thrift stores, you can go hit whatever you want, whatever sort. But ultimately, this business is about relationships. It's about having relationships, and I think a lot of the people who do RA and do thrifting and so on, they run into time this time crunch that you can't get around. Like, I just can't get to enough stores, or I just can't get enough at any one time to really move the needle much beyond, whatever point you're at. And maybe you don't want to go past that point, but if you do, then you're like, I got 4 hours a week I can go do this, and I need 6 hours. Well, maybe you don't need 6 hours if you can figure out a way to make a relationship with somebody and get the stuff coming to you more, or you have more access to it, or quicker, or sooner, or whatever. So I got to do that after this quarantine. That I got to do that. Like, that's just a non-negotiable. I've put that off for way too long in my reselling career. I don't like doing it, probably because it's just a little bit of I'm not an introvert, but there's a part of me that is. I know that sounds crazy to think about somebody who has a YouTube channel, but there's a part of me that hates like going up to people and asking stuff like that, or talking about stuff like that. There just is. I don't know why. Dumb. And maybe some of you guys feel the same way. So that's one of the things I'm going to do after this is all over, for sure. And then just, continue to stay on top of my numbers and so on. I mean, that's important. Staying on top of what's profitable. That's why today I'm kind of sitting here looking at like ASP, average sale prices for books, like the lowest I ever want to go. So I kind of will know, like, okay, this is good, this isn't. And then, making these relationships. That's really my strategy. Now I just need everything to open up. I kind of think, I don't know what you guys think. I don't know how many of you guys are following this nonsense. And I say nonsense in the sense that it's just crazy, not like it's not happening, just it's just crazy. I feel like even by the end of this month, the end of April, and I'm just guessing, I think there's going to be pressure. I think there's going to be pressure to allow some people to start going back to work and just allow some things to reopen, with the acknowledgement that we still need to be careful. We still need to limit the spread of this. We still need to keep working on treatments and vaccines. I mean, you got to attack this a lot of different ways. There seems to be a little bit of the flattening of the curve. You keep hearing about that in some of these states and localities, because we've seen it happen in other countries, so we sort of know what to look for here too. An awful lot of the cases are concentrated in 2 states, in New York and New Jersey. Nearly half of the cases in the United States are there. They have by far the worst outbreaks. They may need to take even further steps. I don't know what that looks like. But, if we're doing all this social distancing and then we open all this back up and there's going to be another outbreak of this, okay, that's bad. But is the social distancing going to prevent the outbreak? Well, from what we're hearing, in the fall, it will be worse again anyway. So is it worth it to kind of keep everything shut down if we're going to have this, we're going to be dealing with round 2 of this in 4 or 5 months from now anyway? I don't know that it is. I do know that the economic fallout from this is disastrous if we keep everything shut down. So I feel like there's going to be pressure. And I know what's going to happen, because as soon as a leader, we've seen this with little inklings, whether it be with the president or a governor or a mayor, whoever, doesn't matter. And I don't think it even matters party either. Well, as soon as they start talking about, reopening things or releasing some restrictions, people jump on them like, oh my gosh, you want people to die and get infected. And I'm like, that's not really a fair argument. It's not they want that. Nobody wants that. Nobody's like, man, I wish more of my citizens would get infected and die. But what they do want is for the economy to be able to continue to restart and reignite, because we need our economic strength to fight this thing just as much as we need, it not to spread. So I guess I would say to people, listen to me, when you hear that from your leaders, whoever your leaders are, again, set party aside. This is not about party. This is not a partisan argument. Remember that a lot of times these arguments are being made in the sense that we acknowledge that the economy cannot be kept in the dumper forever. We have to reopen it at some point. And there will be more infections, and there will be more people in hospital beds, and there will be more people dying. That will happen. That's going to happen anyway, no doubt about it. And we're never going to know exactly how much impact we had, one way or the other, whether we continue this process or do something different. We're never going to know that. It's just kind of a best guess. But what we do know for 100% is we cannot keep everyone home indefinitely. That is not a strategy. That's just a reaction. That's a reaction with no proactive means about it. So at some point, someone has got to come forward with a plan and say, hey, when it looks like this, or it's been this for this period of time, we're going to do these steps to start to get things somewhat back to normal. Somebody's got to come up with that plan. I've yet to hear that plan. And that's very frustrating. So we're all just stuck in this endless limbo that every day you come up and it's like, well, what should we do today? Well, just do what you're doing yesterday. Okay, well, how long do we do that? Well, we don't know. Just till whenever. That's kind of ridiculous. You know, you can't run a country, a state, a city like that. You can't run it like that. You're going to have, and I know maybe they don't really have a firm plan because it's also new, but we can look back to other epidemics and outbreaks and we can make some educated guesses about things, you know, and we can say, look, this is what we'd like to see before we release restrictions and so on. At some point, we're going to have to demand that of our leaders because, you know, a lot of us are business people here. A lot of us are employees. Man, at some point, we have to get back to work. We have to be smart. I know me personally, if they said tomorrow, if they said, everybody can go back to work, everything can be open, okay, I would still take these same precautions. I would not be up in people's face. I would probably still wearing a face mask, even though I hate wearing it. Gloves, washing my hands, not getting, you know, too close to people, not getting in, and probably just going where I need to go, and that's it. I would still be doing that. Like, this has actually changed my behavior. I don't know about you guys, but it has actually changed the way I'm approaching things going forward. Because I realize now, it's like, man, I was doing some stuff that probably from time to time got me sick. Or maybe I got somebody else sick. So, you know, it's actually affected me. You know, it takes a while to form a habit. Man, I've started forming some habits around this that I think will be good going forward. I think other people have too. Now, maybe not everybody, but some people have. But we have to get this economy working again. Let's see what Mark said. What you purchase guideline triggers for your merchant books? Yeah, I was talking about that earlier, Mark. So long and the short of it is, I don't want to make any less than $2 profit on a book because I consider the $2 profit is my cost to work on the book. That's my payment for going to get the book and my payment to process the book and to label it and to ship it in. If I was paying someone to do those things, I would not want to pay them any less than that. So given that $2 minimum, this is the minimum. That means if I'm doing a merchant fulfilled book and it's an average size book and I'm paying around 75 cents cost for it, which is around my average cost these days, it cannot sell merchant fulfill for less than $9 and it cannot sell less than $12 FBA. FBA obviously has more fees with the pick and pack fee. And if the rank was really high, I'd probably even start pushing that number up a little bit too, if the rank wasn't good. What I want to make on a book is $5. So you basically are going to add, you know, another $3 on top of those two. So basically around $12 would want to be my average merchant fulfilled price, and around 17 would be my average FBA. Doesn't mean I won't source a $15 FBA book or an $11 FBM book. It just means that the average needs to be at those amounts, if that makes sense. That's kind of what I'm going to run on going forward. and try to build on, and just make sure that I hit at least that minimum. It's like a floor. Obviously, if it's a $9 FBM book, I don't want it to be a 8 million rank. It needs to be a faster moving rank because it's going to cost me storage fees if it sits there. I really don't want books to sit there more than 60 days. So in terms of sales rank, I don't know if I'm going to say I have a hard and fast number yet. I don't know what that number would be, because sales rank is always a moving target. Because, if you sell, the rank gets better. They sit for a long time, the rank gets worse. So it's tricky. Crystal Poindexter says, not going to happen. Fear is also paralyzing people. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're right. Fear can definitely paralyze people, but it can also spur people into action. Because fear is usually just a reaction to not having enough information about a situation. And so you're fearful about what might happen or might be going on, and you just don't know. Whereas when you have that information, you can make decisions. And even though you might still be afraid, you feel like you have a better handle on the situation. You can move forward. So, and I think to that point, a lot of the fear people have right now is they don't know what coming out of this looks like. They don't know what this ending looks like because no one's telling us. None of the powers that be are saying, this is what it's going to look like when we decide to do this step. We will do this step when we see this. We're not hearing that. It's all just vague. It's all, well, when it gets better. Well, what does getting better mean? What does that look like? And I know they don't want people to just start, going back to their old ways, and, this thing will spread even worse and be even more of a problem. But at some point, you got to tell people what success looks like. And politicians, God, they drive me crazy. They are infamous for this. They talk in such generalities that it's hard to disagree with them sometimes on some of these generalities, because they sound fairly reasonable. But when you get into the specifics, their case falls apart, or they don't have one. And that's what's going on right now. Too many people across the political spectrum, our leaders, are saying, well, we just need this to improve. What does that mean? Specifically, what does that mean? What does improvement look like? What number or metric or data do we need to see to say we're going to allow people to go back to work? We're going to allow businesses to reopen. We're going to allow people to travel without all these restrictions. What does it look like? Just tell us. We can deal with it. But I think they're so scared that if they get hemmed into a particular number or statistic, that all of a sudden people will say, well, what if it never reaches that? And because maybe it won't. I literally think they're just making this up as they go. And that's worrying. Come up with a plan. It may not be, what they say, a good plan today beats a perfect plan tomorrow. It may not be the perfect plan, but come up with a plan and say, we're implementing these steps. And once we see A, B, and C, we will be able to do this and okay that. Fine. Just tell us. You can't leave people here in limbo forever like this. And I feel like we've been in limbo now for several weeks. This is not just like a yesterday thing. It's been weeks. And I don't think people are going to stand for it forever. As a matter of fact, I think I know what will happen. In the absence of information and the absence of a narrative telling you what they want to see happen before they release people back into the wild, so to speak, people are just going to do it on their own. People are just going to do it. They're just going to go to the store. They're going to go hang out with people. I mean, they may not be able to go to places where they can spend money, quote unquote, but they're going to congregate because a lot of people are social and want that interaction with each other. There's only so much Netflix we can watch. As awesome as the Tiger King was. But there's only so much we can do on our own and be so introverted. At some point, some of us are going to have contact with other people, and people are just going to do it. Some people have already done it. And I know it's irresponsible and they're spreading the, I get all that, but man, you can't keep people shut down forever like this. You've got to have some way for them to, you got to give them hope. You got to give them a light at the end of the tunnel to say, well, this is what we're seeing. So I don't know. I'm just frustrated with our leaders right now because none of them that I've seen are being very responsible when it comes to giving us specifics. They're still talking in political speak. This is not the time for that. It really isn't. Susanna said the 1918 Spanish flu lasted 2 years. The people got out and about. The second wave hit and it was worse than the first. No argument. You're right. But this isn't the Spanish flu. And these are not those times. We didn't really have the technology back then we have now. We didn't have the resources. We didn't have the understanding of viruses and how they work. We didn't have the tools. They didn't even, the Spanish flu is kind of misnamed actually, because from what I read, the first person who got it was like in Oklahoma, the first case of it. Fun fact about the Spanish flu, one positive that came out of it, it probably shortened World War I because both sides were really struggling to field a healthy army because, all those guys in such close contact to each other in the trenches, the flu just spread right through them, left and right. So it probably shortened that war, believe it or not, from what I've read. Don't know for certain. I mean, there's other factors too, but Spanish flu was terrible. I mean, it was a bad epidemic, no doubt about it. There will probably be a second wave of coronavirus, whether we stay isolated or not, Susanna, that's the problem. But at some point, how much economic damage are we going to do that's going to be worse than the virus? It's going to be worse. I mean, you think people are struggling with the virus. Keep them unemployed. Keep them without money coming in. Keep them with struggling to figure out how they're going to feed themselves and the virus, and tell me how they're going to do. Worse. There's no question about it. So at some point there's got to be some trade-offs with this. And I don't know what that looks like, but D. Conley says, Kansas. You got it right, Susanna, not Oklahoma, Kansas. D. Conley says, people are saying credit card companies are decreasing limits. Hasn't happened to me, but that's crazy. Afraid people are going to charge and not pay the bill. It's a reasonable fear on their part. They're probably afraid they're just going to charge something and then not have work. So so I think that if I guess if I was a credit card company, I might consider the same thing. I mean, credit card companies do that all the time. They'll reduce your rate, or they'll reduce your available credit because you've run up a bunch of credit on your other cards, and they don't want to be left holding the bill if you bankrupt or just don't pay. The lesson there is don't get in a lot of debt with credit card companies. So that's probably not a good idea. There's not a lot of advantage to getting in debt with credit card companies. As a matter of fact, I can think of very little. And what I mean by debt is like you're not paying it off before all the interest hits. It's hard to even make the case that it's a good way to borrow money. For a short-term loan that you're going to pay off, maybe. But for a long-term loan that you're going to continue to owe money on, doesn't make any sense. Oh, man. If people get paid to stay home, many won't go back to work. I mean, that's always the case, right? But to some degree. Some of those people won't. They'll say, what's the point? But I don't know what you could tell them right now. Like if you don't offer them unemployment, let's say, and you say, well, just go back to work, find another job. Where? You know, if you suddenly put 10 million people into the unemployed ranks, that's a lot of people for the labor force to absorb. That's a lot of people for employers to absorb. I mean, yes, some employers are hiring, but not in those numbers, and maybe not in the numbers where they need to be. Like those jobs are not just, they're not, a lot of those jobs might be in specific areas where there's just not enough of them for the amount of people that are unemployed. You know, I think about somewhere like New York City, how many people there work in service industry jobs that are now unemployed? I don't even know where those people would go to work, even if the jobs were available there. Like where? You know, it's not an easy solution when you have that many people that get unemployed. So there's no good answers to this. But as resellers and as people in business, you know, we need to be prepared for what's going to come out of this. I think there will be more items that are donated or gotten rid of. Maybe someone was saying earlier they saw the waste numbers going up. Heck, driving around getting items might be a thing that you could find a lot of great stuff in. Just what people are dumping on the curb right now because they're just downsizing and getting rid of crap. They're not going to donate it. They're going to put it out there for the garbage person. You know, check with your local laws or ask the people, say, hey, do you mind if I take this? But most of the time, if it's on the curb, it's free. It's free game. So you could probably just get it. And maybe that's part of the solution for getting inventory. You can get free inventory. You don't have to go to the thrift stores. I don't know. But you got to keep striving forward, everybody, and you got to come up with a plan because this seems to have no end in sight. But it will end. It will change, and it will evolve over the next, weeks and months. And there's going to be e-commerce. There's going to be huge reselling opportunities out there. People have gotten more used to it, even, and you can capitalize on that if you have a good plan. But come up with a plan. Come up with a plan and execute it. It's better than no plan, even if it's not perfect. So I've told you mine about the books and what I'm going to do. That's my immediate plan. I'm going to keep working at Amazon. Karen's going to keep doing her job. And, that's our next steps forward. And then we'll kind of reassess when this starts opening back up. But if you guys have any questions or comments after this video post, leave them down below. And check that little bell there that lets you know when a new video goes live so you can check it out. Today was just kind of off the cuff, off the top of my head. I hope maybe it was encouraging or helpful in some way. Maybe it got you thinking about things, and you'll come up with some ideas. And if it did, then that's cool. But I'm going to end it now, guys. I got to go to work here in a little while, and I will talk to you guys real soon.